to the Fantasy Footballers Podcast with your hosts, Andy Holloway, Jason Moore, and Mike Wright.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the podcast. It's the Fantasy Footballers Podcast, if you're nasty. Just two best friends talk about the NFC North.
Oh, a couple of...
And a bear, the cardboard bear.
Oh, yeah. I mean, what an episode for Jay Grizz to be a part of.
That was not planned, but
yeah, it was
you are making a good point.
Yeah, I mean, we've got a Packers fan in the house, a Bears fan in the house, and then a couple of guys who don't care about either of those teams.
Welcome in. It is Saturday, July 18th. Thank you for joining us. Like I said, today is the NFC North. We've been breaking down all the divisions, going over the important players, sneaking in little nuggets, little truth bombs. But we're going to have a good time today. Reminder, Ultimate Draft Kit, it's available, and the mock draft tool is out. It's out on Android. It's out on iPhone. It's not on the web just yet. We are working on that, but it is available in the app, ultimatedraftkit.com. Make sure you go check that out. It's the only draft tool you need to be prepared to dominate your draft coming up in August. The Megala Show, a reminder about that. We will be live, the Fantasy Footballers Live, the Megala Show, presented by SiriusXM, sponsored by GMC and PetSmart. Ooh, look at this.
Look at this. Fancy.
Got some footage, the B-roll going there on the YouTube. So we will be doing a live recording of the podcast Friday, August 28th, live at the Van Buren in Phoenix, Arizona. There are a handful of tickets, ballerslive.com if you want to join us. It's going to be a party. It's going to be awesome. It's going to be a megala
show.
No. It will be megala.
Yes. It's such a good time, and you guys can come down and be part of the show, make it on the recording, get some questions answered as well. And we've always got some shenanigans there, some special moments,
yes.
So make sure you're a part of it.
It's always a good time. The quick question of the day.
Did we tell them the URL? I didn't listen.
Yeah, ballerslive.com.
There you go.
Jason and I are not about to, because I guess when you're hearing this, we're already there.
That is true.
Like, as of this recording, we're about to go to the airport because we are going to New York to Fanatics Fest, where we will be hanging out. If you see us, come say hi. And then Sunday, we're going to be talking to Dart, Scat, and Eli.
That's right. Some giants of New York.
Anyways, quick question. Andy in Australia.
Oh, bonjour.
Hey, ballers. As a redraft league commissioner, how do I deal with 3 inactive league members? They set their lineups, they pay their entry fee, but they're completely offline in every other way. They don't speak in the league chat, don't send trade offers, they don't accept any. They don't even decline the trade offers. Can I just boot them out of the league?
Is this worse than true inactive managers? Because like a true inactive manager, you're not paying your league dues, You're not setting your lineup.
Yeah, you can't.
You're just like, well, you're out of the league. We're going to go to footclanleagues.com. Or the Discord, of the footballers, to find some cool people, fill out those rosters. But if someone is really paying their dues, setting their lineups every week, what do you do? I mean, I guess that's what the question is. The piece of advice that I would say is this time of year, in the offseason, is when I would text them and just say, hey, I want to make sure you want to be in this league.
Right.
You don't usually, I mean, just say this, it's doing it for them. You're like, hey, you don't have to be in this league if you don't want to be in this year. I'm checking with everybody. You didn't, talk a lot or you weren't very active in the league. Are you sure you want to do it this year? And then you do that every year until they get the hint or they change. That's the only piece of advice I think I could have. Would you be willing to boot them?
Yeah, I'm willing to do it. It's but you got to talk to them first, and it's be like, hey, guys, it's frustrating to have 3. I mean, what is the 1/4 if it's a 12?
Yeah,
like that. You have to be able to talk to people and make trades, and
it would be easier to boot them if you already had someone lined up. If you've got a person or two that are like, man, I really want to be in the league, and you're like, man, I got these 3 that's another kind of feather in the cap where you can go and say, hey, I've got someone who wants to be in the league. They really want to be a part of it. I don't know how involved you are because you're not very active.
Right.
Might make it easier to let them say no.
That's a tough call.
Alternatively, you are going to leave the league. You're done, and then you start a new league with about 7 other players or 8, whatever the number is, and then you create a new league, add 3 to that, and you're done with this league.
Yeah, this is just some good old fashioned communication. Which, if they don't respond to that, then go ahead and boot them out. All right.
It's been 20 minutes. You said nothing.
Oh yeah, the Kamara news. If you didn't hear that at the end of the mock draft, a couple days ago, Alvin Kamara did rework his contract, and he will be sticking around. He will be part of the Saints.
I mean, that's what I assumed all offseason. I wasn't quite as high on Travis Etienne Jr. as the rest of people, just because I assumed that Kamara, who is a saint, like he is a
Dorothy Mantooth,
such a good man, but he is like a quintessential New Orleans Saint. He is, he's been there his whole career.
Yes,
he's a leader. He's been there through the ups and the downs, and so I assumed he's going to finish his career there. Later in the offseason, it seemed like, oh man, maybe they are really wanting to move on, and I got excited for that, but he'll be there and make problems for fantasy.
I thought he was a Saint.
For fantasy football, he's not going to do anything on his own to be important.
Right.
And whatever he does do, and he's not going to do a ton. He's not going to be in a 50-50 timeshare. But whatever he does do comes at the expense of someone that you want to start for fantasy.
That's fair. Moving on.
Let's get divisional.
We're talking the NFC North. A reminder, we're doing like a general overview, things that have changed for these teams, and just taking a quick look at the players, how we're feeling. Last year, the Chicago Bears, from worst to first, 11-6. What a year for Chicago. Then there was the Packers, the Vikings, and the Lions actually tied at 9. To me, the Vikings at 9-8. Still blows my mind.
I think you're lying. Right?
Exactly.
No way.
Exactly. Of like the way that the season is thought about because of how things went with JJ McCarthy. You're like, well, they must have won like 3 games. Like, no, they won 9. They actually won the same amount of games as the Green Bay Packers, who were second. The Packers had a tie. So they have fewer losses. Which is also funny because this is a complete inverse of 2024. 2024 was the Lions, Vikings, Packers, Bears. Then this last year, Bears, Packers, Vikings, Lions.
And this division
for what felt like this is a very easy division to predict last year.
Yeah, this division is so close that it could genuinely go in every single possible direction. I don't think that there's – which means like the Bears, who finished first, they are, I think, right now everyone's love affair. In fantasy,
yes.
Everyone is excited about them. The fans are very excited. They could absolutely finish 4th in this division. Not because they're not good, because someone has to.
Right.
Like the Lions, who are a really good team, just finished last in this division. It's a brutal, brutal division. They have the most combined wins in the last 2 years of any divisions by a wide margin. They have 83 wins in the last 2 years. The next closest is 75.
That's not bad. Well, let's start at the top. The Chicago Bears, they were 11-6 last year. Their Vegas projected win total was 8.5 in one. There's so much Jay Grizz on the screen.
I'm so happy that. Oh, maybe I'm not. I don't know, but people usually really love when Al hits that drop.
Right.
And interrupts us with Jay Grizz's moment. And I guess I am happy that people like it, because I hate it. I just hate it so much. I get like usually all those silly little things that give me a little piece of joy. I'm just always annoyed, but at least people like it.
Yeah. And also it still catches us off guard.
we
I know it's going to happen.
I didn't see it coming.
We are dumb. 7-4 in one-score games. It was their first playoff win since 2010. This year, Vegas has them projected at 9.5. Very, very strong offense. Defensively, not the best. 29th in pressure, 29th in yards per game. But they had the third most turnovers, which that when you're saying, Jay, this is a team that could go from first and then finish in last place of their division. You don't get those turnovers. You can't be – your defense can't be that.
Yeah, they have to have
thrive the way they did.
Their defense step up. I think they had some injuries last year. I mean, every team does, but it's a well-coached team. Ben Johnson has proven that he is who they thought he was going to be.
Yes.
And a very exciting offense. There's obviously also changeover at the offensive coordinator.
Yeah, sort of.
Well, okay, yes, because Ben Johnson is the head coach.
It's like when you're like, hey, McVay has a new OC.
Sure.
I'm like,
yeah.
I don't know that I really care about
Is this the new Spritz?
Oh, yeah. Oh, the
Declan
cologne,
Doyle. The cologne of Ben
Yes.
Johnson is the new Sean McVay.
Yes.
So Press Taylor next year is going to be, you've touched Ben Johnson. Come run our team. We'll see. But it's going to take the Bears being really, really great again. Now, I will say this. It is tough. Every year there's a team that goes from last to first. Every year. And last year it was the Bears. They are legitimately good. However, they had the last place schedule. This year they've got the 6th hardest schedule. So it's going to be a different world for them. They're going to have, instead of being like the underdog Cinderella story, the new kids on the block,
right.
Now they're going to be expected to do good, and they're coming at it from a different perspective. And sometimes that really has an impact on the ability to perform. Now the pressure is on them.
All right, let's start with Caleb Williams. Solid for fantasy purposes, not necessarily the most the great news on the accuracy. He completed 58% of his passes. Only Shadur and J.J. McCarthy were worse among qualified quarterbacks. He was dead last in completion percentage versus zone, dead last in off-target rate. I mean,
it's weird, man.
It is. Like how prolific the offense was to have a quarterback.
And how talented he is.
Right.
Like when I went back and I watched his film, it's so weird for a guy who's so good to constantly be so bad. Like his arm strength, his playmaking ability, just his physical attributes is really, they are special. I mean, we knew that coming in. That's why he was drafted number 1 overall. But then it's like, what happened? Like every fourth play is like, wait, what are you doing?
And it's tough because he can go boom for your fantasy team but both directions. And
yes.
Like looking back over the game log, you have some just absolute monster games. Especially he closed out the season as a QB9, QB4, and QB11. But you have you have 2 games of single-digit points from a quarterback. So where are you projecting Caleb? Like, are we going to improve? Do you think this is kind of who he is?
I do think he improves. Obviously, as a young player, he should be getting better. More time in the system, more time with the players. You add in the fact that this is a very, very, like 2/3 of his weapons last year of his prime, Luther Burden and Mr. Loveland,
Mr. Loveland,
were rookies.
Right.
Like they should get better as NFL players. They should step up. DJ Moore did not do anything special on his own. He barely broke tackles, which is like what he was so good at last year. So I think just simply the offensive weapons getting better, Mr. Loveland getting better and healthy to start the year, Luther Burden coming into year 2, and then Rome, I believe is a very good wide receiver, a true alpha 1. I'm worried about the foot, but I've read things recently that make me realize like maybe that's overblown. I think the last thing that I saw, like statistically with this injury, is production should not take a hit at all.
Okay.
From getting back to whatever his peak is. However, the only thing that does happen is a little bit higher re-injury risk going forward.
Okay. For the first month of the season, Rome was the wide receiver 3. We talked about a bit on the mock draft that we just did. From weeks 6 through 13, he was the wide receiver 38. Really, really plummeted. Let's stay with the wide receivers. So we have a gang fight.
Yeah.
Like the Chicago Bears for fantasy purposes, the Rome people, the Burden people.
What is the weapon that you have with Luther Burden? Because I feel like with Rome, it's like a lead pipe.
Okay.
It's like it's not a speed weapon. It's a big, powerful weapon. That's the Roma Dunze. What is the Luther Burden weapon?
Luther Burden, the butterfly knife? Is that,
oh, definitely it's the butterfly. Absolutely. But
it's still not that big.
No, it's not that big. And then in the end,
that's not a knife.
Right. And then it's like, oh, who's going to win? And then Mr. Loveland's got a gun. It's just like, all right. we know how this plays out. But yeah, I like this. I like this gang fight mentality here. So let's get into our gang fight, Roma Dunze v. Luther Burden.
Okay. So Rome, like we said, he started hot. Luther Burden, he was banged up in training camp, around there. So it took him longer to get integrated. And the truth is, production-wise, he didn't do a ton. We do have weeks 14 through 17 where he had a 21% target share. And in that time, Rome was hurt, and Mr. Loveland was down at 17%. And then they got into the playoffs, and Colson Loveland said, give me that.
Yeah.
28% target share for a rookie tight end in the playoffs that's wild. That is wild, where I believe that's the signal of the answer to all Chicago Bears pass catchers. It's Colston Loveland. There is the slight bugaboo of 42% of Mr. Loveland's points came in the fourth quarter. Because if you recall, the Chicago Bears had probably because of the defense, but they had a habit of getting manhandled, and then in the fourth quarter having a miracle comeback, often on the back of Colston Loveland. His draft price, he's going in the fourth. He's the tight end 3. I think it's very worth taking on the risk for the upside. For the wide receivers, we talked on the mock draft, the Luther Burden's ADP, it's just so high and leaving little to no margin for error.
He's drafted 10 wide receiver spots ahead of Rome as of this recording.
Which, that's fine.
So part of the argument,
that's fair.
When you're talking about which guy you want, which guy could break out, because it's really important, like for fantasy football, for the Foot Clan that are making their decision, it's really important to get this right. Obviously, we don't have the answer because we have two different answers. One of us or neither of us has it. But the argument, I think, for both of us is talent of the player. And really, not Burden. It's talent of Rome.
Right.
I think that the reason that you love, because we both like the talent of Luther Burden.
Yes.
He looked great on the field. He has some really nice metrics behind the scenes.
Yeah, his targets per route run and yards per route run are incredible.
They are really incredible. Now, on the flip side, he only had 2 really good games, and everything else was kind of worthless. But it really comes down to what do you believe in Rome. You weren't a huge believer in Rome, the prospect coming into the NFL draft. I was much higher. Obviously, he was drafted in the top 10. I think he's an alpha. I think he is a true wide receiver 1 for a team. And what I mean by that is the target earner, the guy who is going to, if you look at the first 7 games, I brought this up sometime in the offseason, but listeners were lower. The foot injury that started and caused all the problems with Rome.
Right.
That started heading into the Week 9 matchup against the Bengals. And from that point on, the rest of the season, he was literal hot garbage. I mean, you couldn't touch him because it was so stinky. But prior to that injury, the first 7 games, he had a 25% market share of the team, 37% of the wide receiver targets. He was on pace for 135 total targets. He was the clear number 1 for the team, got injured, and then it kind of went a bunch of different directions. I believe, as he is currently healthy, he will be the number 1 target.
Okay. Which would make him going in the 6th round that's perfectly acceptable. I don't have a problem with where Rome is going and the upside. Like I don't know if Burden's going to be on very many of my teams. It's just gotten to this point where the ADP is so out of control.
And it doesn't seem like it's getting cheaper. People are still like steaming him up higher. They're like, I'll take him number 1.
So that's what I would say. Be careful with that ADP. The running backs, I really like DeAndre Swift. He is actually the only.
What a world.
I know. It's terrible. The only running backs to finish inside the top 24 each of the last 6 years, Derrick Henry and DeAndre Swift. He, no matter how much garbage I would talk about DeAndre Swift, he would still be able to finish in totality with a bunch of fantasy points. Now, the breakdown of DeAndre Swift versus Kyle Monangai, is over the second half, it got a lot closer in terms of Monangai. It was starting to be trusted by this team. He felt like a player, because I think he was a 7th rounder. I mean, he was a very late pick. He felt like a running back that could get replaced in the offseason, but I guess he built up enough trust, and it's going to be a timeshare. I prefer DeAndre Swift because of the upside of, he wasn't used as much as a pass catcher as he has been in his career, but he can do that, he can do that. That's like his superpower.
Yeah.
In my evaluation of DeAndre Swift, but you want pieces of this type of an offense, and I have no problem with where DeAndre Swift is being drafted. And in our mock, Kyle Monangai was like a second to last pick or something. He was in the double-digit rounds, which is like, that's incredible value. There does exist a world where Monangai has more rushing touchdowns than DeAndre Swift.
That is true. I don't think there exists a world where he is a true 50-50 timeshare, or certainly not takes over the lead role over Swift while healthy. However, when you talk about insurance backs, there's not always a clear-cut backup. There's not always a clear-cut opportunity should an injury happen. This is one of those that needs to be highlighted for this year. Should DeAndre Swift go down to injury, it will be Monangai, and he will be up towards league winner status simply because of the offense, the team, the way they want to run the ball, and what we saw him do. He was a 7th-round pick. I'm not like bullish on Monangai. People think he's a flex with benefits. I don't see it that way. He got a lot of touchdowns last year, and there was a little bit of luck.
From week 10 on, Monangai handled 45% of the carries.
Yes, and it was about a 200-carry pace. I just don't know that you're going to want to start that. If he gets a touchdown, you're fine, but on the reg, I don't think you're going to want to. However, there was one game DeAndre Swift missed last year. It was week 9, and in that game, you had 31 opportunities go to Monangai. So we have the proof that should Swift go down, Monangai will be pretty much a bell cow. I mean, 31 opportunities. He scored 21.3 fantasy points. It was 26 for 176. The Bengals. So, grain of salt. But the point is, they gave him everything. So I do like Monangai as a late round.
That's wild.
Insurance back,
because Caleb was the QB1 against the Cincinnati Bengals.
The Bengals are nice to play against.
They put a shellac in 47-42. Man, I forgot that game got that crazy. They're for the schedule. They open on the road against Carolina. Then it's Minnesota, Philly, the Jets, and the Packers. They're favored in 5 of their first 6 games.
It's telling that they are favored against Minnesota and favored against Philadelphia. Well, they both are at home.
Minnesota's at home, yeah.
Yeah, but Philly? I mean, that's a tough matchup, and they're currently favored. So, yeah.
All right, we're going to take a quick break, and then we'll talk about the Green Bay Packers. The Green Bay Packers were 9-7-1. So they did not beat their 2025 projected win total of 9.5. This year, Jason, they are projected for 10.5.
It makes sense. The team finished 9-7-1, but the team was 9-4-1 before Jordan Love had a concussion in Week 16. So this was a team at that point in time that looked like they were. I mean, honestly, they looked like they were going to win the Super Bowl. Like
also before Micah Parsons went down.
The Micah Parsons injury, and then that just destroyed their defense. He's so good. It's worth knowing that Michael Parsons will be back this year, but he will not be back at the beginning of the season. So, and that's good for fantasy purposes. They're going to need to score more without Micah Parsons there. I expect he will start on the PUP. He's come out and said, like, he's going to take his time and make sure he is completely ready. If he misses half the season, and honestly, if you're the Packers, whatever. You're going to win enough games without him where you want him at full strength, fully healthy for when it matters in the playoffs. This is a good team.
They were 4-5 in one-score games. Warren Sharp has them down for the 14th toughest strength of schedule, so it's kind of right there in the middle. Offensively, it's a great team, and the defense was very strong as well.
Dude, do you see this stat?
Which one?
This is an unbelievable stat. Christian Watson, Tucker Kraft, and Jaden Reed. Last year, they did not play one snap together. That's crazy.
That is.
Wow.
They just
took turns being injured, I guess.
Matt LaFleur, 76 wins, tied for the second most in NFL history by a coach through their first 7 seasons. So it's solid. Weren't people like
yes? Yeah,
people wanting to fire LaFleur?
He was on the hot seat. People were getting sick. It was like he lost a couple of games after losing his 2 most important players.
Goodness gracious, people.
Man,
it's a long season, and
have some grace.
Just take a breath.
I remember as a Cardinals fan trying to pile on.
Yes.
Yeah. I hate that guy. You should fire him. You should definitely fire him. And then we got the other LaFleur. So, hopefully it's
Matt's hair is much better.
Oh my gosh.
Than what
my hair is better. Honestly, baby LaFleur, I hope you're great. I was rooting for you to get the job. You have too big a forehead to go straight up with your hair. You can't, guys, if you got a big forehead, you got to have some of the hair hit the forehead. That's just the rules. If you got a really tiny,
I don't make them.
It's just follow them. If you got a really tiny forehead from your eyebrows to your hairline, go up. It's just math, people.
It's like vertical stripes.
Right. Yes.
Vertical or horizontal stripes. They do things.
Anyways, the floors.
All right. So Jordan Love, let's start there. He is a good quarterback. I in fact think Jordan Love is a great quarterback. The numbers for him, among 38 qualifying quarterbacks with 200 or more dropbacks, he's first in EPA with a clean pocket, 6th in passer rating, 7th in completion percentage over expectation, 4th in pressure to sack ratio. Jordan Love is very, very good.
I think he is a good quarterback, definitely. I do not think he is a great quarterback. I think he is a good quarterback with a great offensive mind and he's
you can give credit to LaFleur.
He's in a system where we got LaFleur.
Baby
see what I mean?
Baby LaFleur's on the screen.
Baby LaFleur, you just gotta bring the hair down a touch. You got great hair. You've got great hair.
Yeah.
Just don't do that with it. Anyways, so Matt LaFleur, head coach of the Packers here, he runs a great team, a great offense. He knows that, the running game with Josh Jacobs helps them win ball games. That opens things up for Jordan Love, puts him in great situations. I expect this to be definitely a top half offense no matter what. I mean, last year, 11th in points per game. I think they'll be right around there. Not like one of the Bengals, Lions barn burners that you expect to be putting up massive points every game, but they will be a top half offense, if not a top third offense. And so you want pieces of it. There's a nebulous wide receiver room, and let's talk about the running room first. Sure. Because it's a lot clearer with, it's cloudy with a chance of greatness, which is the clouds are Josh Jacobs has still some pending
his
legal
off the field issues.
He was accused of domestic assault.
Yes.
I believe he was arrested.
Yes.
Then new evidence came out. He was released. As of this moment, what has happened is the legal team for Josh Jacobs has said they're happy with where it is, and they expect nothing to come of it.
I think legally it's probably gone.
It's probably gone. However, it has also been reported that it is not case closed. They're still leaving room to investigate. So there is, in the risk rating for Josh Jacobs in the UDK, we'll factor that in. Let's take that out and say he plays, because I do believe that he will play, as many games as he's healthy for this season. I don't think he'll be suspended. I don't think he'll be arrested. And in which case, Josh Jacobs, he's a darn good pick, man. He is.
You don't have any concerns of
like on the field?
Yeah.
No, I don't. Obviously, last year he got injured. If you want to be,
well, he did, and I mean he's still getting. His role is clear. Like he's the primary and featured running back of this team. Now,
he's the primary scorer of this team. What I love is that after the first half of the first season that he was a Packer, they figured out, holy crap, when we get around the goal line, let's give it to him. And they haven't changed. They haven't wavered. And he just scores touchdowns. Through the first 9 games last year, he was on pace for 20 rushing touchdowns. And he's done that every year as a Packer. So I don't have fears. He was a running back 2 or better every single game before the injury. And he had several games where he was a top 10 running back. And I'm seeing 3 games where he was a top 5 running back. Then he gets injured with the knee injury, comes back way too fast, pushes through it, still has good games for fantasy, and then flames out. Had that game where, like, he's trying to play and LaFleur was mad at him. And
he got, like, a weird benching.
Yeah, he got 4 carries in the game even though he started. So it was a weird end of the season. I think that's really weighing on people's memory.
Well, there's that. He's 20, essentially 28.5. He was not incredibly efficient. Like yards per carry, we say it's not everything, but it's a piece of the puzzle. He was right there at 4 over the first month. Still electric for fantasy football, but I mean 3.5, 3.7, 1.9, 3.9. And where I was going is he is the featured running back, but the health of the other running backs of the team, specifically Marshawn Lloyd, I think has kind of forced more work on Jacobs than maybe the Packers really want to give him. Now, a bet on Marshawn Lloyd getting injured has been
100% hit rate. Yeah.
We have 6 total carries through 2 years for Marshawn Lloyd, but he's currently healthy. And, I've been reading from beat reporters over what's been taking place over the summer that he looks great.
He is a talented back. He was a day 2 pick. He was pick 88 in the 3rd round. Marshawn Lloyd, I really liked him out of USC. Very explosive. And they don't have explosiveness with Jacobs. So they need they need that speed. They're not going to have it. I refuse to believe 3 years into the career that Marshawn, the greatest, it's said over and over, the most important attribute in a football player, the most important ability is availability.
Right.
He doesn't have it. And so, sure, one path towards Josh Jacobs not being good is Marshawn Lloyd. That's an easy bet for me to take the other side.
There's that. There's just Jacobs getting older, perhaps slowing down. And then will the game script allow for what they did last year? Like, because the defense was so dominant, but like at the end of the year when they lost Micah Parsons, they were a very, very different defense. So like over the first part of the season, do you see any risk that Jacobs won't be producing?
I don't. I think for fantasy football, he's near a bell cow. He is always given the touchdown opportunities and converts them. He's still involved in the passing game. He's paid to be their main starter, and so I don't have a lot of fear. The fear is age and injury.
Yeah. He's going right now as the running back 14.
There are guys, like when we did an early mock draft, we were talking about we drafted Omarion Hampton ahead of Josh Jacobs. And then we were looking at it and we're like, man, Josh Jacobs is just going to score more fantasy points. And that might be potentially true. I will say that the upside case at 29 is not – Josh Jacobs is not going to be a top 3 running back. He's not going to be a fantasy football breaker, which is why he's drafted as the running back 14 right now. He can't do the high-end outcome that some of these young bucks can do. but he will score a ton of fantasy points. I'm not even remotely worried about that.
All right. The wide receiver position, it has been cleared as Romeo Doubs is now a New England Patriot and Dontavian Wicks is a Philadelphia Eagle, leaving Christian Watson, Jaden Reed, and Matthew Golden as your primary starting 3 wide receivers. I have expressed I'm very interested in Christian Watson right now, especially when you talk about his price going as the wide receiver 30. He just got another extension. He is truly a curious case of a guy who doesn't really have a lot of statistics to his name. As a rookie, 611 yards, 422, 620, 611. A lot of that being injury related. He's capped out at 15 games a couple years ago, but they keep paying him and they keep wanting him around. And they were not aggressive in trying to bring Romeo Doubs back and then trading Wicks away. They're going forward with these 3 as their main wide receivers. How are you attacking the Packers wide receiver room?
I think I am attacking it. That's what I'm doing. You want all 3 of these guys. You want a piece. You want a shot because someone I think is going to be very relevant for fantasy.
You still
football.
on Jaden Reed?
Yeah, I do. I mean, last episode I took Jaden Reed over Matthew Golden. I still want Matthew Golden as well. He's a first round, second year player who is going to get the opportunity to be that dude. And I won't be surprised if he comes out and he is the one, he is the alpha. That's what they drafted him for. The first time in 10,000 years that they took a first round wide receiver.
Optically, it makes sense, but I would be pretty surprised.
Well, I mean, there's a reason I took Jaden Reed. We didn't like Matthew Golden's collegiate tape.
Right.
We were shocked that he was a first rounder. I had him as a third round grade, which isn't bad, but it certainly isn't a star player. And then he really did get opportunities as a rookie and fail. I mean, Matthew Golden, here's a list of first round wide receivers over the last decade who failed to score a touchdown in their regular season. And keep in mind, he wasn't injured. He still failed to score a touchdown.
Right.
Here's the list: Kevin White, Josh Doxson, Laquan Treadwell, Corey Davis, Mike Williams, John Ross, Kadarius Toney, and Matthew Golden. So Mike Williams got it together. Corey Davis had a career, and most of the list was bad. Considering that we went into last year not believing in Golden.
Laquan Treadwell is still in the league, Jason.
That is unbelievable. What an accomplishment for a bad player.
Which Kyle wants us to make sure. Yes, he scored a touchdown in the playoffs.
Yes.
We're talking about regular season.
Regular season. So you want to take a bet here because nebulous wide receiver rooms on good offenses, you don't have to pay up for them.
Right.
If I'm going to take a bet, the problem with Jaden Reed is not talent. The problem with Jaden Reed is they refuse to play him in 2 wide receiver sets. If you're not on the field, you can't score fantasy points. So,
which at some point you have to say you got to question something about the talent, or at least the way that Matt LaFleur sees.
I think
Jaden
they
Reed.
love how they use Jaden Reed. I don't think they think of it as a negative. They think of him positively in the role he has, and so they've got that locked in. I don't necessarily think that's a lack of talent. I do think that there is a world where if they go halfway through the season and Golden isn't getting it done and or Christian Watson gets injured again, now all of a sudden Jaden Reed isn't forced to be on the field in 2 wide receiver sets. I think Jaden Reed is a very good wide receiver. If he gets that opportunity, he'll do well. But we have to anticipate that Christian Watson and Matthew Golden, those are the 2 wide receivers on the field the most in 2 wide receiver sets. Christian Watson has proven a lot more than Matthew Golden, so I take my bets: Christian Watson, Jaden Reed, Matthew Golden in that order. All 3 are worthy picks in fantasy football. For where they're going, the risk is already baked in.
All right.
And then Tucker Kraft.
Hey, see, now we got to talk about a man. Oh, Tucker Kraft.
Bully.
Oh, it was happening. He
was their wide receiver 1.
It was happening. The breakout. Week 2, the tight end 1 with 6 for 124 and a score. Has a couple down games, but then after the bye week. So which is, we talk about that a lot. Of coming out of the bye week, that's where teams can start making some adjustments. Out of the bye week, Tucker Kraft, tight end 9, 7, 1. Gets the unfortunate injury, tears his ACL, so he's out for the remainder of the season. I have kind of proclaimed, I'm going to go for it. I'm going to say, screw it. I think he'll be ready at the beginning of the year. I can handle a couple slower games at the beginning of the season while Tucker Kraft is reacclimating, trying to figure out if he trusts his knee or not. He's so dominant. His athleticism is off the charts. And I like Jordan Love. I think the most realistic expectation for the Packers is, a wash, rinse, repeat type of thing where we try to win with the running game, but should things change and they call on Jordan Love, Jordan Love had that season, his first season, let me pull up the numbers. His first season as a starter, completed 64% of his passes, throws for over 4,100 yards and 32 touchdowns. Like, Jordan Love is very capable in this, especially in this offense, to get it done. And there's a chance that could open back up. But so where are you, though, Jay, with Tucker Kraft?
Look, he's probably their best weapon. If he didn't get that injury with the knee, he would be drafted ahead of Colston Loveland right now, because what he was doing,
probably
what he was doing last year, he was on pace prior, including before the bye week. So the whole season prior to the knee, he was on pace for 1,139 receiving yards. That number last year, only one tight end, Trey McBride, got over 1,000 yards, and he was on pace for 1,139. You look back, there were some injuries last year. Go back 2 years ago to see, what is 1,139 receiving yards? How does that factor in? Brock Bowers, Trey McBride, and George Kittle were the only wide receivers or only tight ends at 1,100 yards. So he was in the alpha A tier.
Right.
I think when we talk about this nebulous wide receiver room, the answer is probably Tucker Kraft. The whole issue is the knee. The whole issue is the timeline to come back. I don't think he will be at full strength week 1. It does seem surprisingly, it's less surprising now, but for the timeline and the expectation when the injury happened and then the offseason, seemed like, well, Tucker Kraft's going to start the season on the pup. Doesn't seem like that. Seems like Tucker Kraft will be playing football in week 1. I do think he gets off to a slightly slow start, but if it's like last year where it's like, you got to deal with 4 down weeks from a tight end, okay, you have to, whether you get him or not for most of them.
Right.
But then you have the opportunity to have a true breakout. I am totally fine grabbing Tucker Kraft. He was truly a bully out there.
Right now he's going in about the end of the 6th or middle of the 6th round or so. I think that's truly that's acceptable for the amount of risk. Their first 6 games, Jay, they are favored in all of them.
That is nice.
Even starting,
they're favored on the road.
Against Minnesota, on the road against the Jets, almost a touchdown favorite.
Oh my gosh! Then, Jets, Atlanta, Tampa, Chicago, Dallas.
Yeah,
and those are, and without Micah Parsons for that stretch,
is juicy. That is an interesting opening schedule for. Man, when you combine everything that's going on fantasy football-wise in, draft cost for these guys,
that's
very intriguing.
To me, that's a feather in the cap of Josh Jacobs. If you're favored in all those games and you're winning those games, that's touchdowns, that's leads, that's the running game.
All right, we're going to take a quick break, and then we'll talk about the Vikings. Minnesota, 9-8.
9. Yeah. It's a curse.
Yes. 9,
and it's a blessing.
9 got them to 9-8, beating their projected win total of 8.5. In one-score games, they were 5-4. And unfortunately, after week 13, or I'm sorry, not unfortunately, the opposite. They were 4-8, and then they won their final 5 games. That was enough for
4 of those 5 games with J.J. McCarthy.
I say that was enough for the team to be like, let's go get Kyler Murray. Yeah, we'll see what he can do. They played 10 games versus teams with a winning record. That's the most in the NFL. The Vikings season, what they were able to accomplish with what was going on, I think that's solid. And that's a big shout out to KOC.
Honestly,
Kevin O'Connell is a great coach.
The coaching in this division is unfair to this division.
Right.
It's the only division in the NFL that is returning all 4 head coaches, I believe. And the reason they are is because they're all just so dang excellent. Like, I mean, I don't even know which one I'd like. Who would you want the most of these four
of the coaches?
Of these coaches, I think I got my pick. But like, if you get one coach to start a franchise, you can trade from any of these four teams.
I think I'm taking O'Connell.
Oh, okay.
I think. Where are you taking?
I think I'm going Dan Campbell. But I mean, there's no wrong answer here.
This year, their projected win total is 8.5. So that's not too shabby. Warren Sharp has them with the 17th toughest schedule. The defense was top tier.
I mean,
the defense is what was keeping them in games, as their offensively points per game 26th, yards per game 28th.
Their last two wins, they scored. With J.J. McCarthy, they scored 16 points in each of them. Wins.
Nice.
Yeah,
that's getting it done. Defense very, very strong. But let's start with the quarterback position.
Gross.
It is almost certainly going to be Kyler Murray.
Did you see the interview? I think it was. No, it wasn't Eisen. But it was an interview with him, and they were talking about he was talking about his competition at quarterback.
McCarthy was, or Kyler?
No, the head coach, KOC.
O'Connell?
Yeah, O'Connell was in an interview.
Oh, okay.
Who's Andy's favorite guy? I can't remember why I can't think of the broadcast name.
Not
Eisen.
Dan Patrick.
Thank
you.
Sorry, Dan Patrick. You're amazing. Dan Patrick was interviewing him, and Kevin O'Connell's like talking about the, they're going to have this competition, and Patrick's just like, yeah, I think Kyler Murray will be a very good quarterback for you this year. And then Kevin O'Connell just stares at him for 5 seconds like death ray. He doesn't know how to respond. It was so awkward. So there is going to be a competition here. Everyone assumes Kyler will win it based on seeing J.J. McCarthy.
What I was saying is it's almost certainly Kyler. I don't think it's impossible. I've been running a bit of like, well, what if J.J. McCarthy wins the job? It's not impossible.
It isn't.
To me, if you're in training camp and Kyler is like...
Kyler can lose the job.
Yes,
we've seen him do enough.
He's just sort of better than McCarthy. Well, at that point, I don't know. If I'm the coach, I'm just going to put McCarthy out there and see what happens for the first half of the year. But what we know is before J.J. McCarthy, quarterbacks for Kevin O'Connell are awesome. They're awesome for fantasy football. In terms of their pass percentage, they were 11th. Like, this team throws the ball. O'Connell doesn't really care. We had Carson Wentz had a couple games this year where he was just out there slinging it before he was just absolutely sacrificed on the field.
Mm-hmm.
But it's okay. Let's move forward.
They would rather have put a dead, battered, broken, beaten down Carson Wentz out there than 9. I remember it was like,
9. He was hurt, and then we had Max Brosmer,
mm-hmm.
which. Oh, then we got to see why he wasn't put on the field.
To remember, and I don't know. Maybe this was totally 100% fully legit. It felt like towards the end of his ankle injury, J.J. McCarthy, that it was like he could be back, and they just don't want. Do you remember?
Yes,
like it was like.
It wasn't
like
a soft benching that they were hiding behind an injury. There were rumors of that.
Yeah,
yes.
and we don't know for sure, but it certainly seemed like that. I mean, that was a long time for that injury.
Yes, and that was definitely possible, but also because people are like, well, I didn't even see him get hurt, but then we saw the play
mm-hmm.
where what happened to his ankle. You're like, oh no, that definitely he's hurt. It's just how bad is he hurt? Okay, so Kyler, let's say he gets the job. He does since 2019. He has the 4th most rushing yards per game, with minimum 50 starts. You have Lamar, Fields, Hurts, and then there's Kyler
mm-hmm.
with he's got more on average per game than Josh Allen.
He's got amazing talent in the legs that if utilized, if coached well, he should be able to very much dominate for fantasy football. He's got better weapons than he's had in many, many years, and I think he's got a better coaching setup than he's had in many years. If Kyler comes out and is the quarterback 7 this year, shouldn't be surprising to anyone. He's a late-round dart throw right now that when you look at the values, if you don't want to take the Josh Allen early, you don't want to spend a 3rd, 4th, or 5th round pick on one of the known studs, then the normal strategy is what late round mobile quarterbacks are available, because those are the ones that could really leapfrog to breaking fantasy. And so you got Jackson Dart. Kyler Murray is definitely in that category. If he can get coached to run the ball better, more, and less like a coward, then he should be good for fantasy.
But he did run last year. I mean, he was right there with his average. He was averaging 34.5 rushing yards per game. So if it's Kyler, how do you feel about Justin Jefferson?
You got to feel better. It's one of those things where, when Carson Wentz came in with Justin Jefferson was fine. He was on pace for like 170 targets, 1,600 receiving yards. That was a 5-game stretch, and you don't remember that because it was kind of mired in what was a terrible season. He finished as wide receiver 22, didn't miss a game, still had 141 targets, and it was just out of sorts. We've seen Kyler support Hopkins in the past, and this is, Hopkins in his prime, and Justin Jefferson in his prime is better than Hopkins in his prime. So I do think that if Kyler's the quarterback, I'm much more confident in Justin Jefferson being back to a top-end wide receiver. Now, the one thing worth knowing, Kyler does not throw touchdowns. Like, he is going to be someone that you're hoping for 20 passing touchdowns. And so the yardage should be there. The targets should be there.
That is true. Kyler, over his career, 26 was his highest in terms of passing touchdowns for a season.
So I don't view Justin Jefferson, obviously as a talent. You could put him right up in that top-tier upper echelon, maybe the best wide receiver in football. For fantasy purposes in 2026, I see him as a back-end wide receiver 1.
Okay.
Like 7 to 12.
And what if it's 9? Are you even drafting 9, Jefferson?
I'm certainly not drafting Jefferson at cost because he's not going to plummet in drafts. He's Justin freaking Jefferson. He's going to be up there high, and we had enough evidence last year. Not that JJ can't get better, but I think where he's going in drafts, unless he's plummeting to a value, I mean, he's going every place I've seen, he goes ahead of A.J. Brown. I would rather have A.J. Brown than Justin Jefferson by a country mile.
The running back position, there's guys there.
And you need to take a shot.
We got Aaron Jones. He is back. He's going as the running back 36. Jordan Mason is going as the running back 43. Now, when Aaron Jones returned from he got a little bit banged up, but from week 8 on, he averaged over 15 opportunities per game. That's a 32% workhorse rating. Like, he was getting a bunch of opportunities. This is a team you want to take a shot. I still fluctuate between the two of them, who I really prefer between Jones and Jordan Mason. Jordan Mason's the better on the ground, but we know we want our fantasy running backs to catch the ball, which Aaron Jones can still do that. You want to talk about old? Aaron Jones is 31.
So it's Aaron Jones Sr. now, and he didn't have a kid. He just got old enough where they said, okay, you want Senior on the jersey? Okay, yeah, that's fine.
So this is going to be a good offense, is my projection of. So I would be taking shots on those two guys. It would
in the draft yesterday, or the last episode in our mock. We both took these guys towards the end of the round, and you had the first opportunity. You chose Aaron Jones.
Yes.
Had I been in your spot, I would have taken Jordan Mason.
Okay.
I think some of the quotes that I've seen coming out, not just I saw a quote from Matthew Collar, a Minnesota insider, that was talking about how this is Jordan Mason's backfield. Aaron Jones will spell and eat into passing downs.
But Matthew, he responded to me on Twitter, and he's like, he wanted to walk that back a little bit.
Sure. Those aren't the quotes, though, that make me believe it is going to be Jordan Mason. It was actually Kevin O'Connell talking about how they have to fix the running game this year. They were really, really, really upset with the running game last year, and they need to figure out a more permanent solution. And I just don't know at this stage of the career if you can fix it and really have a permanent solution with Aaron Jones Sr. at 32 years old being the cure. And I think Jordan Mason could if they could figure out how to utilize his skill set a little better. And so that's why I'm putting Jordan Mason ahead. But both should have a shot taken on them.
Other wide receivers, Jordan Addison, he's still there. They did bring Juwan Jennings into the fold on a 1-year deal. I honestly don't think there's a lot to talk about here.
No, it's Justin Jefferson.
And then hey, TJ Hawkinson.
Oh, man, he got old so quick. He got old so quick.
It was really, really fast.
He is 29 years old.
No.
Man, he feels like he's 43. He really does. I haven't seen him recently, but I assume his beard is entirely gray.
It's got to be.
It has to be at 29 years old. He was always Hawkules or Hawkstrap.
Mm-hmm.
I think he's Hawkstrap now. This is a guy who served his purpose. He was a top 5 tight end 3 times in his first 5 years, but he just doesn't have. 8.6 yards per catch last year. I see more of the same. It's dink and dunk. It's volume. He's
8.6.
Yeah, it's. I don't care. I don't care about Hawkinson.
Detroit Lions, they were 9-8. They did not meet their projected win total of 10.5. They were 3-5 in 1-score games. They were the second most injured team in the NFL. Number 1 when you're talking about the defense.
Oh man,
they were really, really beat up.
Brutal. And then already this offseason, they cut a guy for kidnapping. That's a new one.
Yeah.
But it's like their curse on the defense. I feel like this is a couple years in a row where you look and you go, wow, they could have a really good defense. Nope, psych. It's just.
I think they'll be much, much better on the defensive side of the ball. Vegas agrees. Projected win total 10.5, and Warren Sharp has them listed as the easiest strength of schedule this year. They are favored in 14 of their first 15 games.
Yeah, this was one of the advantages that the Chicago Bears had last year. They had the 4th place schedule. When you finish last in a division, you get the best schedule. And when you're like 2nd or 3rd in a division, it really doesn't matter. The meat of the NFL teams are there's so much parity in the NFL that any team can beat any team. But when you get the 4th place and you're getting the losers. You're getting a couple of your extra games that you get that other people don't get are against the losers. And those guys are
like the Giants, Tennessee, and Arizona.
Yeah. So, spoiler, I'm going to put the Detroit Lions first in the division at the end because I think that their schedule, all these teams are good, and their schedule is easy enough where I expect them to win the most games.
Jared Goff always puts up incredible passing numbers. Sometimes he's really, really good for fantasy. Last year he finished as the QB 9. He'll finish in the top 10.
Yes, but
he will accumulate enough stats by the end to be a top 10 guy. And
don't draft him.
On the last 2 years, like his bust games, they're very low, but the great games are he lives in good. For the most of the time, he will have some spike weeks from time to time, but he's really more of a
his consistency chart, his consistency score, which is the percentage of games where you exceed basically just a good total in 4-point passing touchdown leagues, is 35% of his games he does that. It's a D, and this is for a guy who, ironically, his season-long consistency is always there. He was the quarterback 8, and he was a D in consistency. You don't want him as your every week starter. What you do want is pick him up off of waivers, play him in the right barn burner matchup against great offense at home, those type of environments.
And Yeah, we'll see if their defense fixes that. It'll be even tougher. But if their defense kind of collapses and gets hurt again, then Goff will be more in play.
Aiden Hutchinson is healthy.
Yeah. Jahmyr Gibbs is the talk of the offseason as David Montgomery is now on the Houston Texans. Jahmyr Gibbs is electric. Everybody's either running back 1 or running back 2. Honestly, I don't have a lot to say about Jahmyr Gibbs because he's that good. He's either the first or he won't make it out of the top 3. You know, we did a 3 wide receiver mock.
Can't believe you got him third.
No, did I get Gibbs or Bijan? I thought I got Bijan. Well, it doesn't matter. He's going to be great. Just draft him. There's really not a lot to break down here. But let's talk about your guy, Jason. Sam Laporta. Your favorite tight end. From someone you just were dunking on nonstop for the beginning of the offseason to a player you can't stop drafting.
Well, it really is opportunity cost. I refuse to take a middle round tight end. It is terrible strategy. You are deleting opportunities to take players at wide receiver and running back who can really end up making an impact. They don't all make an impact, but you get more opportunities, more lottery tickets to grab that running back or wide receiver in the middle rounds who does break out, who was George Pickens last year, who, just really makes a huge difference. Whereas Laporta in those rounds will not make a huge difference versus the field. I've talked about that analytically ad nauseum. But he's not in the middle rounds anymore. He's not the 5th tight end off the board anymore. And he is talented enough. He is on an offense good enough. He has the touchdown opportunities enough where he checks all the boxes. This was never an anti-Laporta. This was Laporta's not a difference maker over average tight ends to give up opportunity costs in middle rounds. He's been slipping. I've got him in the 9th round, the 10th round. I love that. I love getting Laporta. If I'm near the double-digit rounds where I'm not giving up that much, now he does make a little difference. I would much rather have him than Kyle Pitts. But it doesn't cost you much. So I think if Laporta stays cheap, I am in. It's so funny.
Which transitions nice into this conversation about Jameson Williams, because Jameson Williams, when Laporta is off the field, is an absolute demon and puts up huge points. We're talking a split from 48 yards per game when Laporta plays with Jameson Williams, and then when Laporta's off the field, Jameson's up to 85 yards per game.
The issue with that statistic is that there were 2 things that happened. One, Laporta got injured, and so JMO was way better, and so it looks, like, wow, when he's off the field, that's what caused it. But the other thing that happened was Dan Campbell was really unhappy. They lost Ben Johnson, and they didn't have an answer at offensive coordinator or play calling. He took over the play calling duties. He did not like how they were involving these weapons of theirs, and all of a sudden they involved Jameson Williams. He was great, and so it's probably a both, but it could be an either or. It could just be, look, with Laporta not there, Goff looked to his next read, and that next read was Jameson Williams, and he exploded. It could be solely that Dan Campbell was like, we've got to get the ball in this explosive player's hands more, and so I'm going to call plays for it. We don't know, but I don't think we can just assume it is when Laporta's off the field.
Okay.
Andy would be upset he's missing here. Andy,
yeah, wide receiver 27, are you interested in Jameson?
So I have a really difficult time with Jameson. I'm not, and Andy would totally be in. I don't know. Fantasy philosophy, talk to me about this, Mike, because I find that I don't really love the boom bust guys.
Okay.
The guys who will win you a week, but they'll lose you a week. And that is Jameson Williams. He'll finish way above wide receiver 27. Like, he will. So if you're drafting him as the 27th wide receiver off the board, and all that matters is that he finishes higher than wide receiver 27, that's a great pick. The process of getting to those fantasy points is not always fun. Because you're going to have games where he just disappears. I don't know that I enjoy those types. Andy does enjoy those types. Where do you stand, and what is the right way to think about it?
You can build your teams in different ways. I like those types of players because when they aren't.
I think I'm a chicken.
When they're not an early pick, like when my draft capital is burned on them. But in the back of the 5th or the early 6th round, Jameson Williams, I think he's a really solid pick. I like to have players, the nitro. You put him in the flex, or it's your wide receiver. He could be your wide receiver 3, and that would be that's a scary combination of if you have 2 better receivers and then Jameson's your third.
Yes, that was
which
just roster construction.
So that's how I prefer to construct my roster. So I'm in. I think Jameson Williams he's a good pick.
I don't mind it. I mean, look, this is an offense that should score an absolute magma amount of points. This is like we talk about the Packers. The Packers are a good offense. They're a top half offense, maybe a top third offense. This is one of those teams where I expect them to score a ton of points. You want players on here. The team should be somehow even more explosive without David Montgomery.
Right.
At no fault to him, and all credit to Jahmyr Gibbs. I saw a stat about the per game fantasy points of every player in the history of and I don't remember who tweeted this out. It was neat. Sorry, I can't give you credit, but I also can't even quote you accurately because this is just off the dump. So
what?
But it was basically the per game fantasy
Are you saying
points.
Anything right?
Not really. Per game fantasy points for all players. LaDainian Tomlinson, Christian McCaffrey, and then one of the players was Jahmyr Gibbs in games without David Montgomery.
Oh, okay.
And he was lapping the field.
Yeah.
The LaDainian Tomlinson, Christian McCaffrey, they had nothing on him. So it is a really exciting prospect with this offense without David Montgomery. Yeah, it's also worth saying, and I talked about on the mock draft at the end last episode, Isaiah Pacheco is not good, but this offensive line is good. If Gibbs goes down, someone will have a ton of opportunities to score touchdowns. David Montgomery
is vacating 34 red zone carries and 14 inside the 5.
He's vacating
That's wild.
158 rushing attempts as well. You cannot give Gibbs all that the Lions did last year. The running game of the Lions cannot all go to Gibbs. He'll die. So there will be someone else of relevance, and then certainly an important insurance back, which right now appears to be Pacheco.
All right. So put the other 3 teams in order of the division, Jay.
For me, it's going to go this one in what is maybe the most difficult division seems very clear-cut to me. It goes Lions, Packers, Bears, Vikings.
That's how I have it too.
Oh, all right. Clear to both of us.
Well, sorry, we can't argue about it. That's going to do it for today's show. The NFC South on Tuesday. Andy will be back. Reminder, if you are in New York and you see us,
come check us out.
Come say hello. But thank you for listening. I hope your lawn is finally manicured. Enjoy the weekend, everyone. Talk to you later. Goodbye.
Thank you for listening to another episode of the Fantasy Footballers Podcast. Join our fantasy football community on jointhefoot.com and follow us on Twitter @TheFFBallers.